To Sights and Stories, a global Aussie's journey. The podcast where a qualified historian with a passion for travel in the past will take you to the world's most iconic destinations. Each episode will explore not just the sights, but the stories behind them. I want to give you expert historical knowledge and practical tips to assist travel plans and along the way make your experiences to sites much more memorable when at the destination. Today we're going to continue a travel series on Japan. Let's take a look at arguably the most important Shinto shrine to visit in Tokyo, the Meiji Shrine or Meiji Jingu. During the podcast, there will be plenty of opportunities to ask questions. Just put them in the chat and I'll stop along the way and answer them. I'll also dedicate the last 10 to 15 minutes of this podcast to any questions people might have regarding the site or any general questions you have regarding Tokyo, going to Tokyo in general. If you want to contact me privately with a message, you can email me at sightsandstoriesau@gmail.com. That's it. In the chat, I've pinned the message so that you can see the site to go to if you want to send me an email. You can also, after this podcast, watch a YouTube link, which will be able to go through all of the pictures, some photos, basically, of all the things that I'll talk about during the podcast. So sit back and let's basically have a journey through this wonderful Shinto shrine located in Tokyo. So Meiji Jingu is dedicated to the worship of Emperor Meiji and his wife Empress Shokin. It was officially opened in 1920, so just over 100 years ago. And this was about 8 years after the emperor had died and about 6 years after his wife had died. Unfortunately, the original shrine was destroyed by US bombing in 1945 during World War II. It was rebuilt and completed in October 1958. Emperor Meiji and Empress Shogun are considered to be kami, or Shinto gods, because of the way that they changed Japan from being a feudal society under the Tokugawa shogunate into the modern day nation it is today. So they're considered to be instrumental in that change that Japan underwent in such a very short time frame from the 1860s through to the early 1900s. It was during the Meiji Restoration period that Japan adopted everything Western in a bid to stay independent from Western nations who had colonized almost all of Asia at the time. So Japan's government, under the Meiji government, wanted to make sure that Japan stayed independent, free from Western control. And the way that they did this was adopt all the technology they could and all the ideas they could from Western nations. So they adopted railway, they adopted the telegraph to enhance transport and communications. They pursued rapid industrialization with the help of the Zaibatsu, Japanese family companies, who are basically are very prominent today. Companies like Mitsubishi, for instance, was one of the early Zaibatsu companies in Japan. The government also adopted like the modern yen, which we can use today when we travel to the country as their currency. And they also embraced Western banking systems that have remained a key feature of their economy today. They also embraced Western education systems and military technology, and that basically meant the adoption of the military technology in particular meant that they were able to defeat a European power under Emperor Meiji's rule, the Russo-Japanese War of 1904-05. That was a very significant event because it was the first time a European power had been defeated by an Asian nation. So by the time Emperor Meiji passed away, Japan had been transformed into a truly modern nation. And according to the Meiji Jingu itself, it says when Japan was facing unprecedented conditions, such as the opening of the country to the world after its long isolation and the end of the Tokugawa shogunate, Emperor Meiji took the initiative to promote friendship with other countries and to adopt Western culture and technology, whole preserving Japanese identity, and thus laid the foundations of modern Japan. So this was a very significant period of history. As you can see, that's what the Meiji Shrine says today about the emperor and his wife. In regards to Empress Shokin, she was very significant as well, because she not only supported the emperor, being his wife, but she also devoted herself to promoting national welfare and in particular women's education in Japan. She was also concerned with world affairs and became involved in setting up what was called the Empress Shokin Fund, which donated money to the International Red Cross. So she was also well known across the world for being someone who thought about humanitarian needs of people. And so for that reason, she is also considered a kami or a god by the Japanese people today. And so that's really the foundations of the Meiji Shrine. It comes as a place to worship the emperor and his Empress Shokin. If you go and have a look later on at my YouTube link, you'll be able to see pictures of the emperor and the empress, who the shrine is dedicated to today. So I think the best way to tackle this site is to actually travel from one end of the park to the other. And the best way to start is on the northern side of the park, and basically take a train to either Yogogi or the Kido Sando station. Okay, these stations are located in the north of the park, a short distance away, not very long to get there. And from there, it's probably only about 500 meters before you walk to the first major gate at Meiji Jingu, the Kitasando Tori. I've just got a couple of questions there that I might stop and answer before I go any further. Is it a busy area during the weekend? Somebody asks. It's busy throughout the week because it is a major shrine in Tokyo, arguably the most popular shrine in the city. So it is busy at all times, but if you go early morning, it's incredibly peaceful. So even if you go on a weekend, if you go on the morning, you'll be fine. You'll be able to walk through the park, and you won't be shoulder to shoulder with people or anything like that. So it's fine to visit at any time, but I think early mornings is a special time to go to this shrine. There's another question there: is any of the shrine original, or was it removed and rebuilt? There is some parts of the shrine which are original, and I'll talk about that later on, but unfortunately most of the shrine was destroyed in World War II during the firebombing of the city towards the end of the war, and it had to be rebuilt, and as I said before, it was rebuilt in 1958. So it's not quite, most of the buildings that you see are not quite 100 years old yet, but the origins of it go back over 100 years. So we'll move on. So we're going to start at the north part of the park leading into Meiji Shrine. And like I said, make your way to Yogogi train station. And from there, it's about a 500 meter walk to the first Torii gate, the Kitasando Torii. The gate is quite impressive. It's decorated with 16 petal chrysanthemum crests. And you might be thinking, well, what's the importance of chrysanthemums? Why would you decorate a Torii gate with that? Well, that's the crest of the imperial family. Chrysanthemums were originally thought to be good as medicine for immortality and longevity. They got rid of evil spirits. The shape of the flower is said to be similar to the shape of the sun, and therefore the Japanese actually equate it to Amaterasu, which is the sun goddess. Very important goddess who's the most venerated sacred deity in Shinto today, and is also the symbol of the Japanese flag. So you've got the sun symbolized as the red circle in the flag, and that connects back to the sun goddess. So all emperors are supposed to be direct descendants of this kami, and they are direct descendants through her grandson Neniji no Mikoto. Neniji is regarded as the great-grandfather of Japan's first emperor, Emperor Jimmu. Okay, so that's where we get the chrysanthemum from, and why it's a symbol that's used throughout the Meiji Shrine. So you'll see it everywhere. Now you know the reason why it is there. The chrysanthemum has been associated with the Imperial Japanese family since the Kamakura period. So around about 1185 through to about 1333 is the Kamakura period, and that's where the chrysanthemum crest comes from. It was actually Emperor Gotoba who was the first to adopt the symbol. He often had katana blades, the long sword that's used for combat by samurai. They were marked with chrysanthemum crest. The other sword that was worn by samurai was a short sword called the wakizashi, and this is the short and this or another short dagger called the tanto could be used for seppuku, which is ritual suicide, which most people like to hear about when it comes to samurai warriors. They would commit ritual suicide if they felt that they had dishonoured their daimyo or their master, or in fact the emperor himself. So wearing of the two swords was referred to as the daisho. So the first emperor used to put the chrysanthemum, crest on the katana, on the long blades that were used for combat, was Emperor Gotoba. So that's where it comes from his time. So you'll find the chrysanthemum on some Japanese coins as well, such as the 50 yen today, and also on the doors of most of the Japanese government buildings. So if you're travelling throughout Japan, you will see the chrysanthemum represented not just at the Meiji Shrine, but elsewhere as well. By the way, there's souvenirs from Meiji Jingu, which also feature the chrysanthemum. But they will only have 12 petals, not 16, that you will see on the torii gates and other buildings at the Meiji Shrine. Just a little bit of a difference there. They don't have the full 16 petals on most of the souvenirs that you buy. So when you get to the torii gate, there are certain procedures that you need to follow to show respect to Shinto religion. And the first thing you should do is bow in front of the torii gate to show respect before entering the complex. Look, you don't need to be a Shinto believer to show respect. It's just a way of respecting really Japanese culture. I guess you don't have to believe in the kami to do this. So the first thing you do is you just bow in front of the torii gate. You take your first step with your left foot through the gate. And you should not walk through the center of the gate because that's reserved for the kami. That's reserved for the gods. So you should always go to the side of the gate and make sure you step through with your left foot. Okay, so that's kind of like the way to enter a torii gate. Okay, and there's quite a few torii gates that we're going to move through as we walk through this site. If you have a look at the picture that I've got on YouTube later on, you'll be able to see what it looks like in autumn when you've got these beautiful yellow trees, lining the streets of the park, and you can see the petals, the leaves just falling on the ground. It's a beautiful scene, so make sure you check it out later on. There's a really cool picture associated with the torii gate that I've been explaining. So once you've gone through that gate, you'll then need to pass through a massive forest. It's actually the biggest forest in Tokyo. It has walking paths all the way through it, so you're not going to be walking through dirt or anything. You've got like paved surfaces. So if you're somebody that has mobility issues, don't worry, it's nice and flat and it's paved, okay? So you can access the pathways from various directions, but we're going through the northern part, like I said before. As you make your way through the park, you'll notice that it's just got masses. It's a true forest. There's 100,000 trees actually located within the park, and they represent around about 234 different species of trees. And it's spread out over 70 hectares, the park. Originally, there were more trees, different types of trees that were planted. There were actually 365 species of trees that were planted. But over 100 varieties didn't survive because the forest is designed in such a way that it looks after itself. There's no, gardeners going through pruning trees or, anything like that. The only thing that gardeners do at the site is to clean the walkways and make sure there's no leaves and it's not slippery for visitors. But apart from that, the forest looks after itself. It was originally planted by 110,000 volunteers during the shrine's construction, and each tree was donated from people all around Japan. That's how many people wanted to show their respect for the emperor and the empress. So the forest, like I said, is designed to be a divine forest that recreates itself, and therefore it's meant to have an everlasting connection to the emperor and the empress. There has been no human intervention since it was created. Nothing has been added or taken away, and the plants must sustain themselves. There are not many Japanese cypress or cedar trees here. So if you go up to Nikko, for instance, you'll see lots of cedar trees. Nikko is a very famous site connected to the shoguns, which people travel to on day trips out of Tokyo. And you've got these giant cedar trees, which you can see. You won't see them in this forest. And the reason for that is because the original botanists who designed the park believed that the pollution of Tokyo and the low rainfall that the area gets would not be conducive to cedars. And so cedars were not generally planted in this location. However, the trees are very good for the native animals, and so there's lots of endangered animals that actually do live within the forest. So it is inhabited by all sorts of creatures, and like I said before, it sustains itself. It's very beautiful. During autumn, you will see all sorts of colours, reds and yellows, beautiful foliage of the trees. So as you make your way through the park, you'll then get towards some of the buildings connected to the Meiji Shrine. Before I do that, though, there's a couple of questions. Is there a reason why you have to use your left foot when stepping over the Torii Gate? It's just a respectful thing to do for the kami. I'd have to check that up, why. I've just always known that is what is expected. But it's a mark of respect to the actual kami, to the deities of Shinto. I think that's the only question there. Oh, do you see deers there? You won't see deers. So in this park, you will see them, quite a lot of them, if you go to places like Nara, for instance, which is just outside of Kyoto, and which I will feature in a future episode on the podcast, but not here. You won't see deers walking around, and you won't get to feed them. Not in the middle of Tokyo. There's another question there. Hi, what is the best season to visit? The best seasons are always spring and autumn to visit parks within Japan. This time of year, it's very hot, so the summer is not the greatest. But I believe that going in autumn is really beautiful. It's not too cold, and you get all the different coloured foliage. So I think that's probably the best time to go to the Meiji Shrine if you need to. But any time of the year, you're going to experience a wonderful place. So don't let it put you off if you're going other times of the year to Japan. There's no reason not to go to this shrine at any season of the year. In fact, you're missing something really great if you do choose not to go. Anyway, I'm going to go straight into some more information, and you'll see why it's so important to go to this site. So now you're going to make your way through that park. You've made your way through the first Torii Gate. You've made your way through a substantial part of the park, and you finally reach a part of the complex, the shrine complex. And the first thing you should see is basically the Temizuya, or purification basin, which is located on the outside of the shrine complex. It's very important before you walk through a Shinto shrine that you wash your hands and mouth to purify yourself before the gods, before you approach them with any prayers or petitions that you have. So the first steps is basically to make sure that you walk up to this purification basin, and the first thing you must do is pick up a ladle, which is called a hishaku, with your right hand, and scoop the water from the basin. You then need to wash your left hand with part of that water. You then need to change the ladle to your left hand and wash your right hand with another part of the water. Once you've done this, you need to switch the ladle back to your right hand and pour some water into your left hand. You cannot touch the ladle with your mouth, okay? You then rinse your mouth, and then you spit out the water on the stones under the basin. And that's basically how you purify. Oh, and make sure you cover your mouth with your left hand, just as a bit of respect. And that's how you basically purify yourself before you walk into a Shinto shrine. And the last thing you do once you've done that is you raise the hand ladle to an upright position and allow any excess water to rinse over the handle and put the ladle back into the water basin. That's the first way that you can purify yourself before you walk into a Shinto shrine. Now, at Meiji Jingu, or Meiji Shrine, there is a purification basin with running water, and so there's no ladles there. So if that's the case, if you go there and there's no ladles in the basin that you approach, you first clean your hands using the running water. You then rinse your mouth with water in both hands, and then you cleanse your hands again afterwards. So it actually, when you get to the site, if you don't remember that, they have English instructions at the basin that shows you how the steps in how you can purify yourself before you go into the shrine. And again, it's just a mark of respect. You don't have to believe in the Shinto gods to show respect and to show the Japanese people that you're there out of reverence, to gain an insight into the location without being disrespectful to those believers that are there. If you're really scared about the process, just walk up to the basin. There'll be English instructions there. It will show you in both picture form and in Japanese and English instructions what to do. So it's not that big a deal. Honestly, it's not that hard to do. Once you've done this, you're then okay to proceed through the rest of the shrine. Okay, and at Meiji Jingu, everyone is encouraged to participate in the ritual, even if they want to, even if they're not Shinto believers. Okay, so there's signs there saying that. So just past the waterfront, the water basin, you should be able to see the amulet office. Okay, this is a place where visitors can purchase ima for about 500 to 1,000 yen. These are little wooden boards that contain pictures of the imperial family's crest, that chrysanthemum, and they provide room for people to write their prayers on. They are then hung on a camphor tree, a rack next to a camphor tree in front of the main shrine, so that the kami can answer prayers. Some people, they don't write any prayers on it. They just buy the ima for a souvenir. You can do that if you wish. There are also ofuda for divine protection, traffic safety, good health, passing exams, getting jobs. They can also be bought from the amulet office. And you can also do something else apart from buying those items at the amulet office. You can also draw waka poetry, which was written by the emperor and empress from an omikuji box. These are poems that are traditional Japanese poems of about 31 syllables. The omikuru are essentially fortunes written on paper slips, and are used by Shinto believers to predict one's future and to receive guidance from the kami, or from the gods. The messages contain good or bad luck usually, but at the Meiji Shrine, they're not like that. They don't actually have fortune telling on these little pieces of paper. They actually have what I said, waka poetry. Okay, there are about 30 different poems written by the emperor or his wife that you can get once you're there. The emperor actually wrote approximately 10,000 waka, and the empress around 30,000 in a lifetime. And each one of these pieces of poetry expressed ethical teachings concerning the emperor and also the empress's feelings towards the world, towards Japan, and towards how people should live their lives. So I'll give you a couple examples. So the Empress Shokin, she wrote down that travelling from afar, foreign people visit us, and day after day our reign is becoming one of growing friendships. So that was just her reflections on how Japan was opening its doors and making new friendships with people around the world. There's another one from Emperor Meiji, and it says, "When we are grown, we at last can stand alone. It is the blessing of having caring parents that should not be forgotten." So his message was not to forget your parents that helped bring you up. So there's just short little sayings like that you can get from the amulet office. So to get one of those omikoro, you need to first make a 100 yen donation. You then shake a little wooden box containing numbered sticks until one falls out, and then nearby you take one waka from the drawer with that number. So each omikuji contains a Japanese and an English translation. So don't be worried, the poetry that you get you'll be able to understand because it's in English as well as Japanese. So that's something you can do. By the way, if you're someone who wants to experience or have a little bit of a taste of what waka poetry you can get from the site, you can actually go to the official Meiji Jingu site, and they have an electronic online experience where you can actually draw your own poem from the emperor or empress from the official site. So if you want to do that before you go to Japan, have a go at doing it if you want to. In the area, you'll also find boards giving a short history of why the emperor and empress are considered kami. It's well worth a read to remind yourself of the history of Japan and why they're important individuals in making Japan basically a modern country that it is today. On the opposite side of the amulet office, you'll also should be able to see the Hall of Shinto Music and Dance, and at 9:30 a.m. Each day, there's usually a dance performance called a Yamato Mai, which is performed as an offering to the kami. It's usually reserved for people taking part in the ceremony though, usually for babies going to the shrine for the first time, to ward off evil, or to celebrate girls who are turning 3 or 5 or 7, and boys usually when they're turning 5. And you might be thinking, what's the go with the numbers? I don't know. It's the numbers are very important in Shinto. So they're the ages that children usually go to the shrine to get blessed. It is here that you can also acquire gushuin, or shrine stamps, seals, for around about 500 yen. People like to collect them in little books or on sheets of paper. They are hand-inked calligraphy messages from a shrine priest. So if you're into that sort of thing, you can get that at the Meiji Shrine as well. Alright, so now that you've visited the amulet office and maybe picked up a couple of souvenirs that you'd like to keep from the shrine, then you'll walk into the temple complex itself. Okay, so as you pass through the impressive wooden doors with the imperial crest, you should then see the main shrine complex, and in front of you should be the votive tablet rack where all the ima get placed, the little wooden boards with the prayers to the kami. So you can place your ima here if you bought one, or simply admire how many people have placed their prayers before the kami. The ima are offered to the kami by the shrine priests every morning. They are burned in a ritual fire. So what you're seeing there is 24 hours worth of ima. So it's not like they've been collected over months and months. They've been really recently put there on that votive rack. So check that out as you walk through the doors. They'll be located nearby. And then above the rack, you'll notice an impressive camphor tree. Opposite that one tree, there's actually 2 further camphor trees, and they're very important. They're called the husband and wife camphor trees. They are joined by a rope, which is called a shimenawa, which wards off evil spirits. They've been growing at the site since 1920, so they are originals. They were not destroyed in the firebombing. And today they're seen by Shinto worshippers as being a symbol of solid marriage, just like the Emperor Meiji and his wife were married all their lives. So today they're a popular place for searching for a partner and for those searching for success in marriage. So you'll often see couples go there today. So that's the first things you'll see as you walk into the complex itself. Now it's time to go and see the most sacred part of the complex. Here it is believed that the Shinto kami reside, and so everyday offerings of sacred food and prayers, known as onakusai, are held around about 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. to honour the emperor and his wife as kami. So you go towards what's called the Holden, or the main shrine complex. It had to be rebuilt after the war. This was destroyed. It's not original. It was completed in 1958. It's made from Japanese cypress wood. Originally, the roofs were made of tree bark, but then they had to make sure that the shrine was more fireproof. And so the current roof is actually clad with copper to give it a bronze appearance. If you check out my slideshow on YouTube, you'll see pictures of the Honden's appearance. And all the places that I've mentioned, actually, all the things that I've mentioned so far will be on that slideshow. And now you might be asking, how do I approach the Honden? What do I do? So the first thing you do as you walk up the steps to the Honden is you'll be offering a coin in the offering box if you want to partake. It's customary to give 5 yen coins, as the coin's name, Goen, is the same sound as a term for luck. So people generally put in 5 yen coins. You then need to clap twice. This calls the kami to you. Then you bow twice. You offer a prayer. Then once you're finished, you bow once more in a deeply reverent sort of manner, and then you're done. And that's how people generally pray to their Shinto gods. Saying that, there's no expectation. You don't have to do it. You can admire the atmosphere and just walk up near the steps and take in what's going on without having to partake in that ritual. Remember also that Shinto believers write their prayers to kami on the wooden tablets or ima, so you can hang those on the rack, like I said before, as well, if as an alternative to what I just mentioned. And if you don't want to participate, it's not a problem at all. There's no one policing it at the site. It's not like you're going to get in trouble for not walking up the steps of the Honden and making a prayer to the kami. You don't have to do it at all. There's no enforcement of that. It's totally voluntary, and one can just go there to appreciate the atmosphere, like I said, and the architecture, the beautiful architecture connected to the shrine. And a lot of tourists do this, okay? So don't be too stressed about, feeling like you have to participate in what's going on. You don't have to at all. So now that you've seen the Honden, it's now time to exit the main shrine complex. And you're going to walk through the Minami Shinmon. So you're going to walk out the opposite exit to the one that you went in. And this is the main gate. And you're going to be able to tell it's the main gate because it's the only 2-storied entrance into where the Honden is located. The gate was built in 1920, and it is one of the few structures that actually survived World War II. It is original. So as I was saying before, somebody asked whether the site was original. Well, this part of the complex is totally original. So you will be able to experience an original part of the shrine complex. The gate is made from Japanese cypress, just like the Honden, and it's roofed with copper. There are a couple of decorations to take note of. You may be able to work out that there are some small heart-shaped patterns carved into the metal fittings and the woodwork associated with this entrance. They're designed to ward off evil, okay, and to ward off fire, essentially, to protect the site from fire. So they're there to protect. And then on the doors to the actual gate, you'll actually see something really interesting. It's called the Kirimon crest. Okay, it's different from the chrysanthemum crest. It is the government seal of Japan, and this crest is represented by a flower and a tree, which represents prosperity, nobility, and good fortune. The crest was the official seal of the emperor before the Kamakura period, when the chrysanthemum was first adopted. So it's actually older than the chrysanthemum. And it's the only place at Meiji Jingu where you can see the crest. It's only located on this 2-story gateway. If you want to see a picture of what it looks like, again, go to my YouTube slideshow after the podcast, and you'll be able to see what it looks like, because I've got a picture there on the slideshow. So once you pass through that gate, be sure to step over the wooden beam, not on it, as you do so. It's also considered respectful to bow your head while passing through that entrance. Okay, you'll then walk through you'll see another water basin, purification basin. because they're located on all the entrances into the actual shrine complex. So there's more than one of them. And you'll also see a torii gate, because this is an alternative entrance into the shrine complex. Okay, so once you've passed through that, you're then going to make your way out of the park. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to head towards Harajuku Station. Okay, and for those of you who want to combine this with Harajuku as a site, which I would recommend, highly recommend, this is the way to get to Harajuku. Okay, you see the shrine first, then you go to Harajuku. You have an awesome day seeing both. Okay, so you make your way to Harajuku Station. All right, there are a couple of noteworthy places to stop and take photos of as you're making your way to that station. The first is the Otori, or Great Torii Gate. It is the tallest wooden torii gate in Japan. It stands at 12 meters high, and it's about 17.1 meters wide, and each pillar has a circumference of 1.2 meters. And they weigh roughly 6.5 tons. So it's a huge torii gate. It was originally built in 1920 from a 1,200-year-old Japanese cypress that was found in Taiwan. But unfortunately, the original gate was destroyed by lightning in 1966, and it had to be replaced by a gate made from a 1,500-year-old Japanese cypress that was again found in Taiwan, since no tree of that size could be found in Japan. They'd searched everywhere, couldn't find one. They had to go back to Taiwan to find one. And the new gate was erected in 1975, so that makes it 50 years old this year. Okay, so it's an impressive torii gate, the biggest one in Japan, well worth checking out. There's actually a sign with some with the history of it located nearby, so if you want to remind yourself of what I've said, you can do that. Okay, so somebody just asked, is this an original wooden torii gate? Like I said, it's not the original. There was one that was built in 1920, but it was destroyed by lightning. It survived the war, ironically, but then it got destroyed by lightning in 1966. So the current one is 50 years old this year. It was built in 1975. It's a truly magnificent torii gate, so make sure you check that and get some photos of it as you go through, make your way through the park. Once you pass through the Great Torii Gate, there's also some very interesting things to see on your way out of the park. There is basically some consecrated sake barrels on one side of the path and some barrels of consecrated wine on the other. And you might be thinking, this is really weird. What are these things all about? Emperor Meiji, he encouraged the development of the sake industry as part of modernizing Japan, because he wanted Japan to have its own brand of alcohol to match Western nations. So he pushed the development of sake. And the straw-covered sake barrels that you see, they're offered annually out of respect to the emperor and his wife by the Meiji Jingu Nationwide Sake Brewers Association. So you'll see that every single one of them has a different name on it and sometimes different symbols. It's really interesting to have a look at. The barrels themselves are not full, okay? So they're not full of sake. They're decorative and they're empty, but they're a way of showing respect to the emperor and his wife. Sake is very important in Shinto, as it's believed that the alcohol can actually connect one, make one get closer to the gods, to the kami. So sake offerings are actually made daily to the kami at the shrine by the priests. Now, opposite the sake barrels are wine barrels. Now, Emperor Meiji, like I said, was keen to modernize his country by connecting to Western culture. And so part of that was to adopt Western cuisine and drinks. And he liked French wine. He actually really liked it. And so every year, a number of famous wineries from Burgundy in France actually donate a barrel of wine to the Meiji Jingu. And they've been doing this since 2006. And it's done today as a symbol of the close relationship that France and Japan have. And it's also meant to commemorate Emperor Meiji's embracement of everything Western, including food and drink. So There's some nice photo opportunities there. Make sure you take a photo. It's explained on boards, both in Japanese and English, next to these items. So if you forget what I say about it, you can read all about it at the site as well. So before you exit the park area, you'll also come across the Forest Terrace. Now, the Forest Terrace is actually a place where you can enjoy something to eat and drink. It has a restaurant there and also has a very good souvenir shop where you can buy anything Japanese. So it's well worth a visit if you're after any souvenirs to remind you of your visit to the Meiji Jingu or Meiji Shrine. That's a place to go. And there's also the Meiji Jingu Museum, which is located there. It was opened in 2019 and it contains artifacts associated with Emperor Meiji and the Empress Shokin. It opens around about 10 o'clock every morning, except for Thursdays, it's not open. It costs 1,000 yen to enter as an adult. The highlights, you can actually see a carriage that's used by the Emperor when he signed the 1889 Japanese Constitution. And you might be thinking, so the Constitution hasn't been around that long. Japan, under the Meiji government, they realised that they needed to have a Western-style constitution to be able to command some respect from Western nations. And so they adopted a constitution in 1889 to get that respect from the Western superpowers. You can also see clothing and personal belongings of the Emperor and the Empress, including clothing that they wore and documents from the era. They're all located in that museum. So that's basically the site. So once you get through that and maybe you've had something to eat, there's also toilets at the Forest Terrace. So if you need to go to the toilet, there's toilets there for people to use. So what we've done is we've basically gone through the whole site. As you pass that Forest Terrace, it'll only be a short distance till you get to Harajuku Station. So at this stage, I'm just wondering if there's any questions out there that people might have regarding the site. I'll answer them now. I'll endeavour to answer any questions that people have. So if you've got questions, put them in the chat. There are some common questions that I get. How long would you spend at the site is a common one that I get all the time. I reckon you'd spend between 1 to 2 hours at this site as a minimum. Taking in the atmosphere, walking through the park, probably 1 to 2 hours. That's all you'd need to really take it in. And as I said, it can be easily combined with Harajuku, which is right next door to the shrine complex. I would definitely combine the two and get them done in half a day, probably. You'd be able to get both done, although Shinjuku probably warrants a few hours there because there's quite a lot to do. It depends on what you're after, if you're a shopper or not. But yeah, definitely 1 to 2 hours is what you would need to do to spend at this site. Are there any questions out there that people would like to ask about the Meiji Jingu site? Another one I get quite often is it good to take children to the area? And absolutely, it's a great place to take children. The whole family should go to this site. There's nothing dangerous about it. In fact, it's a good way to immerse your children into Japanese culture and to show them what they believe in. So I think it'd be a really good place to take the kids. It can be done in an hour and they'll enjoy the walk through the park. Honestly, there's lots of things to do there. So I'd definitely take the children to Meiji Jingu if I had the chance. Is it open day or night? Somebody said it closes. It's not open at night. So it's best to see it during the day because you're going to be walking through the park. It opens very early though, so you can get there. I think it opens at 6:30 in the morning, so you can get there really early in the morning. And as I said, I would highly recommend that because that's the time when there's still some people around. But if you have a look at some of the photos that I've taken and put on the YouTube link, you'll be able to see photos where there's not anyone in the picture. So you can see a whole road with all the parkland and not one person is seen in the picture, and that's because I've gone early morning. and basically ensured that I can, enjoy the site in relative comfort and without lots of people around. Saying that, by the time I got to the complex itself, there were quite a number of people there, and that builds up during the day. So as you can imagine, once it gets past 10 o'clock in the morning onwards, you're going to see a lot more people at this shrine complex. So yeah, definitely I would say go in the morning, and then you can, by the time you get through the shrine, you can then go to Harajuku, whose shops open around about 9:30 to 10 o'clock in the morning. So you could time it so that you get through the shrine, you get yourself some breakfast, because there are a few breakfast places open in Harajuku before 10 o'clock, and then by the time you have breakfast, you're ready to hit the shops. So, you can do all of it, like I said, quite easily in a morning. So I'd do it that way. I wouldn't leave it till later on. I think the park is beautiful in the morning when it's nice and peaceful. Are there any other questions out there? A question I get quite often is it expensive? Can I do this on a budget? The great news is you can walk through the Meiji shrine and not spend a cent. You don't have to spend anything. If you don't want to, you can just take in the site, walk through the beautiful park, have a look at the complex, and walk out again without buying anything. So this is definitely a budget item for those of you thinking about what can I do to experience the real Japan without spending a fortune. This is a place to go to. The Meiji Jingu is definitely a place to go to if you're on a budget. Okay. And it's really convenient to get to, in terms of there are plenty of stations around it. You could travel, I've taken you through from the northern part through to Harajuku Station, but you could go the reverse if you wanted to. You could start at Harajuku Station, which is a major station, and then you could walk your way through into the Meiji Shrine, and you can walk back again the same way if you want to, back towards Harajuku, or you could walk up to the north and catch a train in the north. I just prefer to walk through the whole park, and that's why I go from the north down to the south, down to Harajuku, to catch in all of the park rather than doubling back. It's nice to experience something different. So that's why I've suggested to go from the northern part. Are there any other questions that people might have out there? I think I've covered most of the questions. Maybe I've done a great job tonight getting them done. But if you have got any other questions, don't be scared to put them into the chat, or you can contact me basically on that site by email. So you can contact me at sitesandstoriesau@gmail.com if you want to privately message me and get some tips for how you can experience this site. You can do so, or if you want to get any more information about some historical sides of the sites, you can do that as well. Alternatively, you can leave some messages on the YouTube as well. So there's plenty of ways that you can get in contact with me if you want to know any more information. So I hope the episode has provided you with insights into the Meiji Shrine, the reasons why the shrine was dedicated to the Emperor Meiji and his Empress Shokin, the story behind the beautiful forest surrounding the shrine complex, which it's the biggest forest in Tokyo, absolutely stunning park to walk through, which looks after itself, which is amazing. The torii gates, the magnificent torii gates, including the biggest one in Japan. The sake and wine barrels found on the approach or exit to the shrine, which gives you, an indication of how the emperor and his wife are still highly, respected today, and the close relationship that is there between France and Japan, and the way that the emperor wanted to modernize his country. Hopefully you've gained an insight into Shinto practices and how to purify yourself before a Shinto shrine and show respects to the kami and so forth. If nothing else, maybe you've learned about that during the podcast. You've learnt maybe about the significance of the chrysanthemum symbol. There's so much that I've tried to cover in this podcast, so hopefully you've got something out of it from today's podcast. Now that you know more about the Meiji Shrine, your visit should be more memorable and special when you're in Tokyo. That's what I hope anyway. If you want to see pictures of some of the highlights from a visit to the Meiji Shrine, be sure to check out my YouTube video attached to the podcast. It'll give you those images of everything I've spoken about. Please also don't be scared to press the follow button. This will help you connect with future podcasts, and it also means I know I'm doing something right, and it gives me some encouragement to continue exploring Japan and other places around the world with people and help them in their travels. So please follow me. If you haven't already pressed that button, please do so. If you have any questions, feel free to post them on the chat. Or remember to check out the YouTube's presentation with pictures, or if you want, you can privately message me, like I said before, by writing an email to sightsandstoriesau@gmail.com. There's a link to it in the chat, and it will also be on the YouTube or Spotify links as well. Be sure to catch my next episode on another exciting part of Tokyo as I endeavour to take you through a journey through Japan. Next time, I think we will go to a popular observatory in Tokyo. I'm not going to say any more than that, but we are going to be looking at a very popular observation deck that people like to go visit in the city. So I'll leave it at that for now. Until then, I wish you all well and safe travel to all those abroad. Catch you later, mate.